What's good, YouTube? I'm Dewan. So not too long ago, I did a poll on my Twitter, and if you want to know, my Twitter is dlight330. The poll that I did on my Twitter was, do people prefer Packet Tracer or GNS3? And 67% of you all said Packet Tracer. So here we are. I'm doing a Packet Tracer RIP series. What we're going to do is basically take site A and connect it to site B, and we're going to go through the whole process of hardening the devices, setting up the VLANs, setting up inter VLAN routing, configuring SSH, DHCP, RIP, and then we're also going to do access lists, and then finally we'll go through the process of troubleshooting the network. Now that we got that started, I have a tutorial on how to get Packet Tracer somewhere up there. Feel free to check it out, download Packet Tracer and follow along. That's what this is for. The ticker at the bottom will show you what we're doing. Like I said, this will be the switch hardening portion of the RIP series. RIP is Routing Information Protocol. If you all do not know, that's what we'll be going over in this series. A couple things before we get started. Like I said, download Packet Tracer. Feel free to follow along. Whenever you're studying for your CCNA, there's a couple things that I keep open. One is being OneNote. So I have my OneNote open now with my notebooks on the side and my different tabs on the side or sections on the side, and then each note page here. So for the RIP lab notes, I have the first video. These are all the steps we're doing for switch hardening. And then the next one will be router hardening. That's a great way to follow along. Next, what you also want to do is save your commands in Notepad++. Feel free to download that. OneNote, I believe, is like a cloud version if you have Windows 10. If not, it's included in Windows 2016 and 2013. I think I have a link up here on how you can get it free. Now, with that being said, Notepad++, feel free to download that also. Basically, a lot of times when you're configuring devices, you need to copy your running configs, to copy interface configs, or everything of that nature. Notepad++, rather than switching through different notepads. So if I open Notepad here, I would have to have 20 of these open. Rather than Notepad++, I can basically tab out what I want. And then also I can just double click and create a new one. And then you also can compare your configurations. Now that we have that out the way, in this portion, we'll configure and verify device hardening of switches. We'll do this on site A, and then we'll do the same thing for site B. Let's talk real world. In the real world environment, your manager will come up to you and hand you a switch or hand you a router and say, hey, configure this device. And so you'll get a switch or a router, and you'll have to connect to the device with a console cable. So that will be this blue cable here. You will take the serial portion on your PC. I have a video on how to connect through PuTTY if you're looking for hardware on how to actually do it. But here in Packet Tracer, basically you connect to the serial port and then connect to the console port on the switch. And now we will open up the PC and then click terminal. And that's how you will connect through the serial in Packet Tracer. Now I'm going to delete that. Oops. I accidentally deleted it. So if you just can press Control-Z on your keyboard, that'll undo your whatever you deleted or whatever you did. As you can see, this is orange. That's spanning tree. If you want to fast forward spanning tree, which is about 50 seconds of wait time, we'll just fast forward and it'll automatically come up. Another thing I want to get into, in this lab, this is router 1 or R1, R2, switch 1, switch 2, and then I labeled the PCs. Any good network documentation that you have in an environment. Most of the time, the PC name, if it's an actual PC and not a laptop, you will want to correspond it with the location. So first portion that you see will be the VLAN number. That's the PC number. And then that's going to be the corresponding port on the switch. Now, if I was to keep all that up, it would take up too much space on the screen. Now that we have that configured, let's start hardening this switch. The first thing we want to do, which I have switch 1 open, we'll hit enter. Now in Packet Tracer 7, which is the version I'm using, you guys can feel free to use whatever version you like. But in Packet Tracer 7, a common problem that we have here is that the background color does not change. So it'll be white with black lettering. Hopefully you all can see this well. So I double click on the switch. We're in switch 1. And as you can see, it just says switch. That means there's no configuration done for the most part, but we can verify this. Right now, we're in user exec mode. What we need to be is in privilege exec mode. Privilege exec mode or enable mode is the mode where we actually can configure this device. When you double click on the switch or double click on the router, it's just like going into the console on the router or on the switch. That's where you're actually at. And as you can see, it's command line interface, which is the CLI or whatever. But anyway, if we enter, we're still in user exec mode. What we need to be is in privilege exec mode. We'll hit enable, and now we're here. Let's verify that there's no configs on the switch. So we'll do show, running configuration, and hit enter. And if we hit enter, you see the host name is switch. It's running version 12. No ports, none of the ports have configurations. VLAN 1 does not have an IP address. No con configuration, no VTY configurations. Now, another thing, when you're dealing with a switch, you need to verify that there's no VLANs on that switch, which is virtual local area network configured on the switch. So we'll do a show VLAN brief. And by default, VLAN 1 will be configured on the switch. So that's what's there, VLAN 1. And that's it. Now, a lot of people want to know what's the difference between show VLAN and show VLAN brief. If you look at the difference of the two, as you can see, the show VLAN brief shows a basic summary of what VLANs are configured. The show VLAN shows additional information, which is going to be the VLAN, the MTU, and different things like that for your VLAN command. There's no clear screen on the switch, so you'll just have to enter the enter button. Now, the first thing we want to do is configure a host name. Now, in order to configure a host name, you'll have to go from privilege exec mode to configuration mode. And in order to get into configuration mode, you'll hit configure, or you can shorten it and just hit config and then T, or terminal. And now you're in global configuration mode for a device. And here is where you configure the host name, you set passwords, you set your banner, you configure it for SSH, just all that good stuff you do right here. The first thing we're going to do is configure a host name. And this will be the name that is displayed when you enter the switch. So now this is switch 1, we'll call it SW1. I'm going to show you guys something. We'll go back to privilege exec mode. If I mistype something, I have to wait on this to translate to a DNS server. Now this can take forever on a physical actual hardware switch. To end this, you hit Control Shift 6. Yeah, and you see like I'm entering this and it's not working. And so you have to wait so long for this to work. So after we enter the host name, we'll go back to global configuration mode, hit config T. We want to do a no IP domain lookup. And what this is telling the device is do not send DNS lookups to anywhere. Basically, just come back to the next line and ignore mistypes, ignore all that stuff. Otherwise, it's going to be trying to translate, waiting for a response from a DNS server and all that good stuff. We don't need that. So now that we have that, the next thing we need to do is configure an enable password. Now, the enable password we'll use for this lab is, we'll call it never use. The reason why we call it never use is because the enable password is not secure, it's not encrypted, and basically it should not be used. It's all clear text. So we configured that. Now, when we go to, let's exit. Right now, we're in user exec mode. We need to get into privileged exec mode, and we hit enable. What we'll have to enter is never use. And now we're into privileged exec or enable mode. So we do a show run, and as you can see, this is clear text. Let me show you guys a shortcut. When you're doing show run, the short syntax for show running configuration is sh run, and then if you hit the pipe button, which is going to be above your enter key on your Windows keyboard, and then question mark, you can use begin, exclude, include, and I'll show you more about when to use these. But what we're going to do now is do include password. And now this shows us everything that has the password word in there. So now it shows the no service password encryption, and it shows the enable password never use. Daddy. Hey baby, my baby girl just came in. What's up?
I went over the.
All right, so I mentioned before that the enable password is in clear text, not encrypted. It should not be used. So what we're going to use now is, it's called the enable secret. This is a MD5 hashed password, and the password that we'll set is going to be Cisco. Now I entered a space after the password. This is one of the things I wanted to mention. If I was to press enter now, that space will be included. Cisco passwords are case sensitive, and they accept spaces and symbols and all that good stuff. So you got to remember, whenever you're entering your password, do not put a space at the end. So now we have enable secret is now our new enable password, because whenever you set an enable password and an enable secret, the enable secret always takes precedence and makes the regular enable password no longer valid. And we can verify that now. I exit out. We're in user exec mode. We need to get into enable mode or privileged exec mode. We're in here. Now, remember before the password was never used? It doesn't work. But if I hit Cisco, we're in the device. Like I said, that password is a one-way hash MD5 password. So if we were to do a show run, you can see the never used password is there. But now you have this enable secret level 5 hash for the enable secret. And that takes precedence over your never used password. So let's go back in here to our global configuration mode. So far we've configured the host name. We configured this for no IP domain lookup. And then we also configured the enable and enable secret password. Remember that the enable secret password takes precedence over the enable password. One of the things you notice, when I press enter, I'm directly into user exec mode. But you don't want people just plugging into your devices. You want them to have to enter a password when they enter your device. So now, if I hit enable, password Cisco, then we go into configuration mode, global configuration mode, hit enter, and we're going to go into line con 0, which is the console port for your device, and we're going to set a password, and this password is going to be console. Hit enter. Now, even though we set a password, it does not go into effect until you enter this command. Log in. Now, whenever you plug into your device through PuTTY or whatever secure CRT, whatever you use, and you press enter, you'll be forced to enter a console password. One more thing we want to set is the timeout. Now, if you're in your device and sometimes you're at your desk and you're trying to configure it and you're the only one there, but you may be doing something else, you're going to get timed out by a default of 10 minutes. What we want to do now is set the timeout for never. So we'll go 0, 0, which means never timeout. Now, when we exit the device, you're prompted with a password. And you remember this password that we just set for the console connection is going to be console. And hit enter. It takes you directly into user exec mode. And now you hit enable and hit another password. And that's going to be Cisco. So now we have the line con 0 configured with a password, and we have the exec timeout, and we forced it to have to use the password whenever you connect to the device. But one thing that we did not do, often when you're connected to your device, you'll get these interrupt message. So let me try it. Let me show you this. So if I go to interface 01 and I go shut, it doesn't take me to the next line. I have to hit enter or a tab or something. Now, we can prevent that from happening because you'll get these messages often and they'll get real annoying. So we'll use logging, and if you use the question mark, and we'll use synchronous, which means synchronized message output. So we'll use this command, and now when you get, if I was to go in here to interface 01 and I tell it shut, you see how it takes me back to the interface configuration? That's because of the login synchronous command. Now if I go no shut to bring it back up, we're all good to go. One of the things I didn't tell you is that whenever you're in global configuration mode, if you just type exit, it'll take you back to privileged exec mode, but you can also type Control Z at the same time on your keyboard. That will take you back to privileged exec mode no matter which mode you're in. So if you're in interface configuration mode or if you're in global configuration mode, it'll take you back to privileged exec mode just by pressing Control plus Z on your keyboard. So we'll go back into config T. Now we need to configure these VTY lines. VTY lines are what are used to connect remotely to a device. A switch has 16, 0 through 15 lines. So we'll go line VTY, and if you just go question mark, remember the question mark command is the help command on your iOS device. If you have it next to a word, it'll give you everything that's like that word, and then if you have it spaced, it gives you all the options that you have in that mode. So right now we are in line VTY, and then we do the question mark. It says the first line number. Which line number do you want to go in? So we want to start with 0, meaning we're going to configure line 0, but then we also want to configure everything in between. So we'll hit 15. Now we're in line VTY, 0 through 15. We need to set a password, and this password will be GoCast. That's pretty simple. Can you remember that? Again, the VTY lines are what you use to connect to your device remotely by Telnet, SSH, something like that. Now, when you connect to this device now, by default, Telnet is turned on. Telnet uses port 23, just in case you guys want to know, and Telnet is not secure. But we're just going to configure this for now. Now, the password is set. If you were trying to connect to this device remotely, right now, you will get password required, but none set. Meaning that even though the password is here, we need to put that login option, just like the console, to tell it to log in with the GoCast password, and then you can connect to the device. Boom, we got that configured. Your VTY line is now configured with the GoCast password, and it's enforced with the login command. Now, when you connect to the device, how are people supposed to know, if they're allowed to connect to the device, what messages, who to contact if something goes wrong? We need to configure what you call a banner message of the day. Banner messages of the day displays no matter how you connect to the device. That's one of the reasons why Cisco wants you to learn it. Because if you connect through console, VTY, auxiliary, it does not matter, the banner message of the day will display. So you configure that through the global configuration mode. I so happen to have a banner message of the day already configured in my Notepad++. We'll copy it here. Actually, we'll start to enter it. So if you type banner, you have all these different options. But in Packet Tracer, you just have the banner message of the day option because that's what Cisco wants you to learn. Now, using the banner message of the day, you type banner, motd, and then you can use any type of character you like to start your message, and then to finish your message, you use the same exact character. A lot of people may use a caret or whatever, but I'll show you mine. So right here I have this caret, and I go all the way down to close caret. Just like writing code or writing a script or something. Now, the banner message of the day is configured. If we go Control-Z to take us back to privileged exec mode, then we go exit. Boom. Banner message of the day displays when I'm trying to connect through console. So I'll enter console for the password, enable, password Cisco, boom. We are now in this device, but we have a problem. If I was to go show run, right, I'll configure all my password. Enable secret is a secret hash password, so you can't see that, but you can see my enable password. You can see my console password, which is console, and you can see my VTY line password, which is go Cavs. That's not a good thing. That means anybody hooked up Wireshark to our network, they could see what passwords we're entering across our VTY lines. So there's a way to encrypt that, and the way you do that is by going into global configuration mode and typing service password encryption, meaning encrypt all the passwords on my device. So if we do Control-Z, go back, do a show run, and as you can see now, all the passwords are now type 7 passwords. Boom. 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 But your enable secret is still a hash password, but it does not matter. It's encrypted. Everything's on your device is now encrypted and secure. They can still decrypt that password by using, I don't know, a password cracker online. So it's best to use Radius, TACAX, or something like that on your network. But if not, make sure you have this service password encryption turned on. The next and last thing we need to talk about is your device at the moment is configured with Telnet. Like I said, Telnet is plain text and not secure. So if you're connecting remotely to your device, if someone has Wireshark on your network, they can see everything that you're sending across that VTY line. But what we want to configure here is going to be SSH, secure shell. What we want to configure is a secure encrypted connection when we're connecting remotely to our devices. Now, SSH uses port 22. That's one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're configuring your firewalls or you're configuring access lists on your network. Now, in order to set up SSH on this switch, we're going here to config T. We already have the host name. The host name is SW1. Next, we need to configure a domain name. This domain name will be used combined with the host name to equal the fully qualified domain name when you're connecting to the device. So we'll use ohiostate.local. Go Bucks. You already know what it is. So now the fully qualified domain name for this device is going to be sw1.ohiostate.local. Now that we have the IP domain name configured, we need to configure a username and password for authentication through SSH. So we'll go username Dewan, and we'll go privilege level. You have different privilege levels, 0 through 15. 0 meaning basically you have no access. 15 meaning rather than going into user exec mode, you go directly into enable mode if you have privilege level 15 access. So I'll give myself privilege level 15 access. Now here you can use a plain text password, but what we're going to do here is enter a secret password because we should always use a secret password. And then this password is also going to be Cisco, which it shouldn't match your secret in a real world environment. Boom. So now we have the username of Dewan. He has privilege level 15 access, and the secret password for his login is going to be Cisco. Good enough. Next thing we need to do is the crypto key. The crypto key is an encrypted key used for secure access for SSH. So crypto key generate, we'll just do RSA, and then we'll press enter. Now the modulus is, you want to use the highest bits possible, and now that's configured. Now as you can see, the name for the keys will be sw1.ohiostate.local. That's that fully qualified domain name that I was speaking about when we first configured the IP domain name. Okay, we configured the Dewan username and password, but right now it's using that local login. But we wanted to use the Dewan local login, so we need to tell this device to the VTY lines to do this. Login local, meaning use the local login when we're configuring this device. Two more things. The first is change this to SSH version 2 because version 2 is more secure. And then we want to go into our line VTY lines 0 through 15, and we want to tell this to only accept SSH. So that would be transport input. You got different options. You can use all the protocols, you can accept no protocols, or you can tell it SSH or Telnet. What we're going to tell it is SSH. So now this device will only accept SSH. That's switch hardening. We could go in and configure the VLANs, but we'll say that for another portion. But right now we have our device hardening. We configure the host name, the enable secret, and the enable password. We set up service password encryption. We configure SSH. We told it no domain lookup. We gave it an IP domain name of ohiostate.local, a username of Dewan with the privilege level 15, secret password of Cisco. And then we also created a banner on this device. Remember, it's the banner message of the day that we used. And then we went down here and configured the line con 0 with the password and told it to not interrupt me during messages by using the login synchronous command. And then we also gave it a exec timeout to never timeout by using exec timeout 00. And lastly, we configured the VTY lines. You can see, rather than saying login like it said before, it says login local. And to transport input SSH, meaning only accept SSH. Now that we have everything on this device verified and configured, we need to save these configurations by doing copy running config to the startup config. Pressing enter. Now I'm going to go through and do the same thing on switch 2. You guys can just watch and follow along. I'm using the same, pretty much everything except for the host name. you guys found this video informative. If you got any questions, hit me up. Feel free to leave comments in the section below. Hit me on Twitter. This is part 1, hardening switches. We'll go even deeper into the next portion on hardening routers, and then we'll just keep expanding on that. I thank you all for viewing. Peace.